How's it going, guys? It's Eclipse here, and welcome back to today's video of World of Tanks console. We're bringing up the news again today, and we're looking at one of the brand new vehicles that is coming into the game tomorrow when this video actually goes live. And if you're watching it tomorrow or later on, this is of course the SDP WZ66 Grom, which is a tier 8 tank destroyer, and this one is a pretty interesting one because of the fact that it has a huge amount of damage with very good penetration, and in fact is not too slow either. So when you compare all of this together with a relatively solid armor model, that actually works quite well because of the fact that its armor is very thick and it has been on PC for a little bit of time. And so when they're bringing it into console, I expect a similar sort of story whereby your frontal armor is actually quite good. Now, we haven't been given statistics as to the armor. Remember, obviously PC, console, different games technically, but it's most likely going to be a very similar sort of story. But what is the SDP? So as you can see, the gameplay tips from Wargaming, this is what they're saying. It has a massive 162 mil with 700 alpha, leaving opponents absolutely thunderstruck. Along with that thunder, of course, comes some lightning. The Grom's rounds travel at one of the highest shell velocities in World War II mode, making each shot lethal, apparently. But it's not just about offense. The vehicle's upper hull structure, robust armor, position your upper hull to deflect incoming rounds from tanks of the same tier, and keep your lower hull protected as much as possible to shield your weak points, and that being, you know, this lower plate, but it's quite slim anyway, so it's kind of difficult to actually hit. One thing to be kind of aware of is that you can hit through the tracks on the right hand side here, where you see the blue armor just behind it. So you can actually aim here and you can pen and track the vehicle, which is kind of what you want to do when you're facing one of these tanks, is just track it down, keep it locked down, and then you can go for things like the cupola, or you can continuously go around and then get the side of it. It just depends on the situation, but if you can lock it down in place, it's not going to be able to hit you, and then you can hit the lower plate slightly easier. So that kind of really ruins this tank in terms of, you know, if you're playing up against it and if you know what you're doing, you can really just demolish these tanks. But that's the same with most TDs, but this one definitely has a very hard-hitting main armament with that 700 alpha, and it is quite an effective one on PC. Find a mid-range position and use your ultra-powerful gun to bolster your frontline fighters. So, yeah, pretty good. And as stated, the APCR shell velocity, 1600. It is absolutely broken in terms of the speed of these rounds. You're not going to really have to lead a whole lot with this thing, and it's going to make it quite a nice, like, sniper. The .4 accuracy definitely lets it down when it comes to that sniping positions, but with all of the perks and bonuses you do get on console, I don't think that this is too much of an issue. It's probably going to come down to about .33 if you've got all of the skills like steady aim, I believe, or something like that. And yeah, just all of the aiming perks. Obviously you can't have snapshot on it because it doesn't have a turret. It is non-turreted, but it's still very nice. Now, one of the main things that usually happens when they introduce a tank like this is the DPM kind of sucks. And although this tank isn't like terrible in terms of its DPM, it isn't great. It's 2,500, which is pretty good for such a high alpha damage tank. The only problem I can kind of envision with this is that you do have such a long reload, whereby if you aren't the best at aiming or you haven't had a huge amount of practice having to deal with people with such a high alpha damage vehicle, you're going to find it a little bit of a struggle with its 16.8 second reload. This is obviously going to come down if you've got things like rapid loading and your advanced loader. It is going to come down considerably, so you're probably looking at around 3,100 DPM if you've got all of the perks and equipment and stuff that is going to boost that up, but it's still not amazing. And so your reloads are going to be around about 13 seconds, something like that, which is pretty good. I don't think you can complain all too much. Maybe it'll come down to like 12 seconds. But it's still quite long. Up against some of the mediums, you'll kind of struggle if you do miss, as they will just pepper through you. But your armor does actually hold up, at least on the PC side, from when I've seen it, played against it, played in it. This thing, yeah, its armor kind of holds up. If that stays true on the console version, I think this tank could actually be quite a solid one. But it kind of plays similar to what you would see with like an SU-122 54. So, you know, the tier 8 or Tier 9 Soviet vehicle. It's a similar sort of armor model whereby you just kind of have to keep wiggling, trying to make the opponents hit the wrong place and just avoid taking damage in that regard. Because if you stay perfectly still, people will find the weak points, but if you make it difficult for them, they can end up, getting RNG'd. It's going to hit the kind of stronger bits of the armor, and the armor is going to work a lot better. So that's kind of how you can play the tank as opposed to playing up against it. Now, in terms of gun depression, you do have 7 degrees, which is actually pretty good, with an elevation of 15 degrees on the lower side, but, it's a non-turret tank destroyer, and you shouldn't really be facing people, like, within very close proximity, where you're going to be limited by the elevation anyway, so I don't think that would be too much of an issue. You need those mid to long range engagements to make this tank work. And then you've got 2.7 second aim time on the higher side, definitely due to the fact that you do have that high alpha. The only real negative I can see, like flat out, is the yaw limit, 5 degrees either side. You really do not have a spread with this weapon, so it's not going to be the greatest at being quite versatile. You're going to have to turn a lot. So any perks that are going to improve the accuracy when you're actually turning the hull of the vehicle is going to be massive for this vehicle, and you want something to improve the actual turning speed of the tank as well. So maybe you would want to take in some kind of speed boost equipment. Does indeed actually to increase the turning speed of the tank, which I think would be really, really nice. One extra thing is that the HE rounds of this thing actually have a crazy shell velocity, and they do 890 damage, and the penetration is 80, which for a tier 8 tank destroyer is pretty darn good. And I think that is kind of one of the good things about this tank. It is a tank that isn't going to be super overpowered, but it is going to be very, very strong. And I think depending on how the armor actually holds up on console will be the deciding factor as to whether this is a competitive tank destroyer versus a kind of like, good tank destroyer. If it does have very good armor like it does on PC, I think it's up there. It's a competitive tank destroyer, but when it comes to its armor, if it falls flat, if it doesn't seem to work that well, then yeah, it's probably getting pushed down to like a good quality tank destroyer as opposed to being competitive. Of course, this is a Polish tank, so it is the first Polish tank destroyer, which is kind of nice, and I think it will be a nice one to actually have in the game. Obviously, the Polish tank destroyers have been on PC for probably like a year now, maybe slightly less, maybe like 9 months. I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure someone will quote me on exactly when they came in on PC, but yeah, I'm sure one of you will know. But in terms of price point of this tank, if you want the ultimate bundle, which as I say with most things, I would never recommend actually getting because of the fact that you're basically paying for equipment, which is costed at the silver price of the equipment itself. So you're essentially costing like roughly 1.5 million silver worth, which would be the equivalent of converting 1.5 million silver from gold, and that is added onto the price. And so, yeah, you're getting 11,600. You do get some extra bonuses with it, like vehicle XP boosters, commander XP boosters, and 7 days of premium. But a lot of these sorts of, like the 7 days of premium, is at a premium price, and so although you're saving 35%, yeah, I don't think it is really that worth it. And considering that you can pick up the loaded version, which has the 7 days of premium, the Commander XP boosters and Vehicle XP boosters, costing you 9,900 gold, I would much rather you guys, if you wanted to spend 11,600 gold, would be to get 9,900 gold one and then purchase some ×2 silver boosters when they go on sale, as you're just going to earn more silver than you will actually getting the cost of the tank kind of loaded up with the equipment in it. So if you want to save some money, if you do want to spend the money though, that is kind of what I would recommend. But for most people, I'd always recommend purchasing the base bundle of the tank. It comes with just the tank, the thing that you actually want. And so, yeah, I'd highly recommend, if you are buying tanks, to buy just the base version of the tank rather than spending the extra like 2,000-3,000 gold to be able to get some XP boosters and some 7 days of premium account. Most people probably have a ton of Commander XP boosters and it's not really required anyway, and most of you probably already have premium account. So basically this is just buffing up the price for no reason, and the only thing that you might want is the XP boosters, at which point it's probably better to just go ahead and buy the XP boosters after you've bought the base version of the tank, which may actually save you more money than if you were to just buy the loaded version. So That's kind of, in terms of saving you the most money and kind of most money bang for your buck. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you to go out and spend money on this tank. It is quite expensive, but in terms of price point compared to some of the other tanks in the game, it's on the lower end. I mean, 7,000 gold for a tier 8 premium. It's about £30, which is very expensive for a tank on a video game, which, as I say, I would never recommend spending £30 on a tank on a video game, but it's up to you what you spend your money with. Just, focus on actually getting in real life stuff sorted out first, and then if you have some extra money and you want to spend it on your hobby playing this game, then yeah, that's kind of where I would go. But of course, in terms of price point, it's a reasonable price for a tier 8 tank destroyer compared to some of the other bundles that we've seen recently where they're trying to charge 15,000. Either way, that is the new tank. That is kind of what it is, the overview of it, etc. So we'll move on to a couple of other things. We got the tank trade-in event, as you know from many videos that I've done if you've been watching the channel for a while. This is kind of what I would call, it's not a scam, but it is one of those things that is just going to drain your account of things that are actually worth getting. And essentially you can trade in a vehicle that you already own for 50% of the gold value. So say you got a tank for 10,000 gold on your account that is worth 10,000 gold. Like if you went out and bought it, it would be worth 10,000 gold. Wargaming would give you 50% of the value of that to trade in towards another vehicle. So you get 5,000 gold towards the following vehicles that are in here. I'm not going to go through all of the tanks, but you can basically see them on the tech tree list, on the premium tech tree list. So when you jump into the game, you'll see them on that list, like in the tech tree with a little green symbol, like a circular symbol. And you click on it and it will say, do you want to submit a tank for this vehicle? And then you can submit any of the tanks that are kind of within the realms of the trade-in list. And then you get the tank with that discount of whatever you put into the vehicle itself. So if you put in 10,000 gold vehicle, you get 5,000 towards, the Concept 1B, for example. But you still have to pay the 9,000 gold or whatever extra to be able to purchase it. So essentially what you're doing is trading in a vehicle that you already own to get a discount on a vehicle that is in the game. And so you're paying money to be able, or trading money that you've already spent on the game to get a discount on a vehicle, which you still have to buy. It's not a great thing. I think it's actually kind of a bit mischievous from Wargaming, to be honest. I don't like that this is a thing because of the fact that, yeah, you're spending your own money that you've already spent on the game and then devaluing it to be able to then spend more money on the game, which kind of seems a bit stupid in my opinion. But at the same time, the only real things that I see it being useful for is, say, for example, there's a contract out right now. And one of the contracts is, I don't know, the TS5. You can get it in the premium contracts, but you've already got the TS5. So what you could do if you wanted to purchase a vehicle in the trade up list is you could submit in the tank that you've already got. And then you'll get the discount on a tank that you might want, and then because you no longer have that tank on your account, you get the contract completed, and then you get the tank that you already inputted into the trade-in event back because of a contract that's in the game already that has come up. And so you end up getting a discount, but you still have the tank that you originally had in the first place. Because if you have a tank, so say you had a TS5, it was in a contract, and you got the TS5 again, you get the equivalent in silver. Whereas if you trade it in and then get it again, where you have basically submitted it, you'll then just get the tank again. So that's kind of the only thing that is actually viable, in my opinion. I would, if you wanted a tank in the trade up list, just hold off. The tanks come up on sale all of the time, and you're better off, actually just paying the price of the gold to be able to purchase a vehicle rather than submitting a tank you already own to get another vehicle. And what's great about kind of that is that you're actually getting pretty much the same sort of discount for waiting and buying the tank when it comes out as when you're actually submitting a tank you already own to get a discount. All of these tanks in the trade up list are basically 100% price. They're not like they give you a 30% discount, and then you can put 50% of the tank that you already own towards it, it's, it's 100% of the price. So if the TS5 costs 10,000 normally, and you're putting in a 6,000 gold tank, it costing you 7,000 gold. But what might actually happen in a week's time is they come out with like a sale that the TS5 is 30% off. That way you don't even have to submit a tank, and you still get the tank for the same amount of gold. So that is really why I don't like the trading events, and why I think that they are a bit of a shady thing from Wargaming. I think it's just basically getting you to spend money when you think it's a good deal, but it really isn't that good of a deal when you can just buy the tanks anyway for pretty much the exact same prices when you trade in one of your own ones. If you just wait a little bit, it's just, it's up to you what you want to spend your money on. But I thought I'd give you an overview of the trading event as always. And then there's the Black Friday sales prelude. So obviously Black Friday coming up, but Wargaming have put in the sales prelude, whatever you want to call it. I'm pretty sure I butchered it, but either way, this comes with a 25% discount on all equipment. So on Tuesday, tomorrow, this will come with a 25% discount on all equipment, 50% discount on all cosmetics, excluding skins. So you don't actually get a 50% discount on skins, which is really annoying. Maybe that'll come when Black Friday actually hits, hopefully, so that it will just be normal camos and flags and stuff like that. But in terms of boosters, you can get yourself some ×5 vehicle XP boosters that you can see here. And realistically, in terms of the things that I would spend money on the game for, personally, the only thing I'd really spend money on is getting ×2 silver boosters or ×5 vehicle XP boosters. They're very expensive, but the savings that you get 50% off, and they're saving you 5 times the time. Now, in terms of when I play the game, if I'm limited on time and I don't have that much time to play or whatever, saving 5 hours for every hour that I play, or 4 hours for every hour that I play, because you're getting 5 times the XP, it's just saving me so much time. And dependent on your own financial situation, if you want to spend 30 quid to maybe save yourself, I don't know, 20 hours or 100 hours or something crazy, because you could probably use 7 boosts per hour of these ×5 vehicle XP boosters. So maybe you get 7, 8, 9, 10 hours out of the vehicle XP boosters, having them on constantly. That's just the equivalent of 50 hours roughly. So you're saving yourself 40 hours, and if it's costing you £30, if you divide the total cost by the hours, you're probably paying 75p per hour. But that's up to you whether you'd want to spend that or whether you just enjoy grinding. I don't want to say that you should buy these things because they're just ludicrously expensive, but it is something to weigh up, and whether you value your time more than playing, it is probably the most beneficial and cheaper way to grind out tech tree lines than just buying free XP, etc. So yeah, it is also dependent on how you perform in your games. If you get 3,000 XP normally with premium account, and you're using ×5 vehicle XP boosters, you're getting a lot more XP for the time that you're playing, so you can grind through lines very quickly. But maybe if you're a new player to the game, I wouldn't recommend buying these, because you'll probably feel like it wasn't really worth the time, and you'd be better waiting a little bit to get a bit more experience and then getting them, as that's just going to be more beneficial and better value for your money that you're spending on the game. So yeah, as a more intermediate experienced player of World of Tanks, this is probably something that I would recommend if you want to save yourself some time. But as again, I'm not telling you to go out and buy stuff on the game. So then premium consumables, I would never recommend these ever, in my opinion, because of the fact that they're just ludicrously expensive, and you can just play some games playing in your premium tanks in Cold War and get probably 20 enhanced repair kits for every game that you play. So whether or not you want to spend that money is just down to you. So that is kind of what's actually coming up in the next week. So obviously The big thing being the SDP WZ66 Grom, which is coming in tomorrow. So if you're seeing it in game, let me know what you actually think in the video description down below, and what you think of it if you haven't actually seen it in game yet and you're watching this on the release. Let me know what you think of the tank. Have you played it on PC? And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. As always, be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, and of course subscribe down below if you aren't already, as we're closing in on 20,000 now, which is hopefully going to be the goal for early next year, something like that. But thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.